Let's begin with Yellowbrow's human nature experiment. A long time ago, in a remote fishing village, the villagers caught a strange creature while fishing. Instead of killing it, the kind-hearted villagers reported it to the authorities. Before a group of starving villagers, the creature cut open its skin and revealed precious pearls, even producing pills to heal the sick children. With just a sneeze, the elderly women were rejuvenated. The creature spread its arms and summoned a tornado, throwing an abundance of seafood onto the shore, so the villagers no longer needed to fish. They started worshipping this strange being as a Buddha, building a magnificent temple, and even the mountain statues of Buddha were replaced by its image. One night, as they were offering sacrifices on the beach in exchange for the creature's pearls, everything seemed peaceful, until someone, seemingly possessed, rushed forward with a knife and slashed the creature. A torrent of treasures spilled out, chaos ensued, and the crowd surged forward, killing the creature and dividing up its internal riches. The villagers' greed was fully unleashed that night, much like the story of Pentheus and Dionysus from Greek mythology. 100 years later, the village was long gone. The creature's body revived on the beach, and a monk approached. This monk was the previous incarnation of Tong Sanzong, Sun Wukong's master in Journey to the West, known as Jinchanzi. The creature was the former life of the third chapter's boss, Yellowbrow. Yellowbrow told Jinchanzi that he had won, but the monk remained indifferent. From their conversation, we learned that the villager's story was nothing but an experiment of human nature devised by Yellowbrow, or rather, a debate between Yellowbrow and Jinchanzi. This is where the third chapter's story begins. After crossing Yellow Wine Ridge, we now arrive at Little Western Heaven. In Journey to the West, this is where Yellowbrow pretended to be the Buddha and built Thunderclap Temple to deceive Tong Sanzong. Tong Sanzong was captured by Yellowbrow, and Sun Wukong fought him several times but was always defeated by Yellowbrow's golden rod. Eventually, with the help of Maitreya Buddha, Wukong managed to defeat Yellowbrow and rescue Tong Sanzong. When we arrive here, Yellowbrow has already reclaimed the area and rebuilt the new Thunderclap Temple. To make things clear and easier to distinguish, I'll refer to the religion he created as Yellow Buddhism. Along the way, you'll encounter many monks who have frozen to death in the snow. According to their profiles, new members of Yellow Buddhism must wear a thin robe, which is merely a flimsy piece of cloth. Master Wukong said that only those whose cultivation is insufficient will feel cold, but as a result, many of Yellowbrow's followers froze to death in the wilderness. You'll face the Macaque Chief here. He was once a general under Wukong, responsible for helping him command troops. After Wukong's death, the Macaque Chief wandered aimlessly until he encountered Yellowbrow. Yellowbrow told him, "The suffering you endured was ultimately due to a lack of power." Think about it, if you had the abilities of that monkey who wreaked such havoc in the Celestial Palace, it would have been others who suffered. Here, that monkey refers to Wukong. After defeating the Macaque Chief, we will arrive at the central area of Chapter 3, the Pagoda Realm. This is where Yellowbrow rebuilt the new Thunderclap Temple. In Mirror Mirror, we encounter Yellowbrow transformed into a young monk, and from his dialogue, we can see his disdain for Wukong from years ago.
When that monkey was alive, he was all about weeping and begging for help.
However, most of what he says is true. He once trapped Wukong inside the golden alms bowl, and if it hadn't been for Kang-Jin Loong's help, Wukong would have been melted into blood.
See if this monkey merits a place amongst my disciples.
According to the profile, Kang-Jin Loong was originally the second constellation. While the Greeks divided constellations into 12, ancient China divided them into 28, with each corresponding to an animal. Shortly after Wukong's death, the fourth constellation, Dawn Star, mysteriously disappeared. Kang-Jin Loong infiltrated New Thunderclap Temple in secret to both resurrect Wukong and find Dawn Star, but he was soon discovered by Yellowbrow. Later, we will encounter his human form, Kang-Jin Star, where we learn more about his story. After being discovered, Yellowbrow absorbed Kang-Jin Loong into his sack. When he emerged, the Constellation officer was dazed and bewildered. What exactly happened to him in the sack, and what led to his fall? Among Chinese players, there are two mainstream theories about this question. The first theory suggests that what Kang-Jin Loong saw in the sack, the 10-tailed goldfish, wasn't a real goldfish, but a sexual metaphor, as fish and water are related to sexuality in Chinese. This theory posits that Yellowbrow used sexual illusions to corrupt Kang-Jin Loong. The second theory points to the line in the profile, "Black and white entwine, old friends hard to find," which suggests that Yellowbrow distorted Wukong's image, leading Kang-Jin Loong to completely deny the righteousness of saving him, and thus willingly fall. Both theories show that Yellowbrow is still the same twisted monster who enjoys conducting human nature experiments, just as he was 500 years ago when he was first dredged up. After defeating Kang-Jin Loong, we enter the dungeon, which Yellowbrow constructed as a so-called land of bliss. The third prince has been imprisoned here for a long time. According to his profile, we learn that he is the third child of the King of Flowing Sands from Chapter 2. Disgusted by Yellow Wine Sage, the third prince left and, like Kang-Jin Loong, came to investigate Yellowbrow. However, he lacked the strength to match Yellowbrow, and during their battle, his four captains were all defeated and corrupted. To avoid falling under Yellowbrow's influence, the third prince blinded himself and pierced his ears, isolating himself in the dungeon, waiting to die alone. In the lower level of the dungeon, we encounter the third prince's fourth subordinate, Captain Lotus-Vision. According to the third prince's profile, Captain Lotus-Vision was impaled by Yellowbrow's Wolf-Tooth mace, with roots growing out of each wound. His profile states that when his body was shattered by the mace, golden Buddha light burst out of his wounds. However, after his fall, the once golden Buddha light has now turned into purple laser beams, symbolizing darkness. In the upper level of the dungeon, we encounter the third prince's first subordinate, Captain Wise Voice. According to the third prince's profile, he debated Buddhist philosophy with Yellowbrow and was ultimately persuaded by him. Now, he shouts demonic sounds in the dungeon, corrupting the minds of the prisoners. As we explore this area, we will frequently be interrupted by his demonic sounds, which will reduce our maximum health. We don't know the exact details of his debate with Yellowbrow, but based on his profile, we can infer that Yellowbrow deconstructed his original Buddhist beliefs, leading him to fall into corruption. It's possible he experienced something similar to what happened to Kang-Jin Loong. After leaving the dungeon, we will soon encounter Kang-Jin Loong in her human form, trying to convince Baji, who is trapped inside a golden symbol. This kind of symbol was an ancient Chinese instrument that produced sound through collisions, but Yellowbrow repurposed it as a prison. 500 years ago, Wukong was once trapped in this symbol with no means of escape, and if it weren't for Kang-Jin Loong's help, Wukong would have perished inside. Now, 500 years later, Yellowbrow has imprisoned Wukong's teammate, Baji, inside the symbol, trying to convince him to surrender. Baji, being stubborn, sarcastically suggests that Kang-Jin Loong join him for yin-yang practice, which refers to sexual intercourse. In some Buddhist practices, it was believed that female followers could achieve spiritual advancement by engaging in intercourse with monks. It's worth mentioning that Baji, in traditional Chinese culture, is known for his lustful nature. After the conversation, we discover that the entire island is actually on the back of a giant turtle, but we'll talk about its story later. In the original work, there is no mention of Kang-Jin Loong's gender, but after such dark scenes and countless dull battles in the dungeon, the appearance of such an enchanting female character truly made me feel refreshed. I found many discussions online where people have noticed that this is the best photographed boss in the entire game. I also discovered some excellent fan creations, which I'd like to share with you in hopes that you'll also come to appreciate this character. Once we free Baji from the symbol, he tells us that he came here to collect Wukong's essence to revive him. He also reveals that he has known the turtle for a long time, 500 years ago. The turtle had also come to this place hoping to defeat Yellowbrow, and his companion was a giant serpent. As we move forward, we will find the serpent's corpse.
The same look again. A furry coat and a pinched face. Luck's all you've got. Great, another mute. Whatever. Let's not dally.
After Wukong's death, the Turtle General and the Snake Generals ventured to New West to confront Yellowbrow. In response, Yellowbrow unleashed the 10-tailed golden fish against the Turtle General and summoned the Apramāṇa Bat to battle the Snake Generals. As the fight raged on, Yellowbrow cast a spell that drastically changed the weather, whipping up a brutal snowstorm. Being cold-blooded creatures, the turtle and the snake could not resist the effects of the freezing cold and began to lose their strength. After countless rounds of combat, the Turtle General, no longer able to endure the freezing conditions, sank into the icy depths of the water. In his final moments, his last sight was of the Snake General on the shore, succumbing to the frost and being cut into several pieces. The white bones scattered around the area are all that remains of the fallen Snake Generals from that fateful battle. After defeating the Apramāṇa Bat, we descend the mountain and encounter a young monk this time. It's Maitreya Buddha in disguise. Pay close attention to his robes, as they are a different color than those of Yellowbrow's monk. Here, we can overhear Baji grumbling about how 500 years ago, Tong Sanzong was captured by Yellowbrow after bowing in worship to a false Buddha.
No sight.
I, the sacred gourmand, saw enough Buddhas before you were born. Foolish brat. You didn't see that coming, did you?
True hearts find their path, and the Buddha is on that path. Why not worship with a true heart? The path might just show itself.
Worship my hoof. Visit temples, kneel to figures. You tell no black from white. That's my master. I am fed up with all these skin-deep rites.
No true heart, the path is sealed. With true heart, it's revealed.
When Maitreya helps us find the path up the mountain, we will meet Non-White on the way. According to his profile, he was once an actor specializing in playing the comic roles in traditional theater. These characters typically wore white face paint, but Non-White's dream was to one day play the role of a hero. After a failed attempt to perform as a hero, during which he was booed off stage, his anger boiled over. He killed the actor who regularly played the heroic roles and skinned his face, attaching it to his own. Terrified, the villagers sent him to New Thunderclap Temple to seek enlightenment, where he was given the name Non-White. Yellowbrow promised him that if he could kill us, he would earn the right to take our face and finally become the true hero he always wanted to be. Nearby, we encounter another boss known as Nong-Able, Yellowbrow's second disciple. According to his profile, Nong-Able is a master of martial arts. One day, Yellowbrow offered to teach him new spells, but Nong-Able refused. He believed that his skills in martial arts were more than enough and that he didn't need any other powers. His philosophy is clear: I want to win using only the abilities I trust. Nong Abel's view of Yellowbrow is particularly striking. He says he has always chosen the clever path, which is why true enlightenment evades him. He seems capable of everything, but in reality, he achieves nothing. In response, Yellowbrow had Nong Abel's hands bound and forced him to kneel in the snow to reflect. Yet, Nong Abel never returned to Yellowbrow's side, standing firm in his belief. During our battle with him, in the second phase, Nong Abel breaks free of his bindings, revealing that his restraint had always been self-imposed. His act of defiance was never about physical limitations, it was about proving his conviction to Yellowbrow. As we continue, we come across the bodies of a white fox who were killed in the final cutscene of Chapter 2. The white fox's story is introduced in that end cutscene, and we must transform into a fox ourselves in order to engage in battle with Nong Void. Captain Void Illusion's body can be found in the snowy terrain. In his final confrontation with Yellowbrow, his limbs were severed, but strangely, Yellowbrow replaced them with limbs taken from other people. While the act of severing limbs seems straightforward, the decision to replace them with those of others is far more unsettling. What's even more bizarre is that Captain Void Illusion wasn't just given one set of limbs, he was pieced together using limbs from multiple individuals. My theory is that Yellowbrow did this to showcase his ability to reshape flesh, as if flaunting his power over physical forms before the Buddha himself. Yellowbrow tortured these four captains to death, systematically destroying their minds, beliefs, and bodies in the process. The last of the captains can be found right at the entrance to New Thunderclap Temple. Captain Kalpa-Wave had his head severed by Yellowbrow, was corrupted, and his body was twisted into the shape of a blood-red lotus. In Buddhist symbolism, the red lotus represents the frigid hell place where the damned suffer as their bodies are frozen, turning crimson from the extreme cold. Yellowbrow essentially molded Kalpa-Wave into this exact image. As we see him in the snow, barefoot with his legs exposed, his skin is covered in red frostbite. Of all the captains, I feel that Kalpa-Wave is the one who best represents Yellowbrow's twisted artistic vision. Yellowbrow was undoubtedly proud of this creation, positioning Kalpa-Wave as the gatekeeper to New Thunderclap Temple. After entering New Thunderclap Temple, all that remains are Yellowbrow and his disciples. His first disciple is the scholar Nong Void, who was responsible for killing the young fox at the end of Chapter 2.
A ghost wants you dead already. For years, I've prayed you'd find peace. Still you come to take my life in penance against yours.
According to his profile, Nong Void was the first to follow Yellowbrow's teachings. One day, Nong Abel came to discuss the question of whether killing is sinful. Nong Void argued that if it's for the greater good, then sometimes killing is necessary. Nong Abel asked what he meant by the greater good, to which Nong Void responded, "It is the fulfillment of virtue, ascending to the land of bliss." Nong Abel found this reasoning absurd, pointing out the contradiction. Killing is killing, there's no need for these convoluted justifications. The real sin lies in pretending to justify it. After that, the two never discussed the matter of killing again. If you approach Nong Void without taking the form of the fox, he will remark, "Both you and I are sinners, and many things are done out of necessity." The question of whether killing is sinful is a classic debate in Buddhism, discussed for centuries. Many Buddhist stories tell of monks offering their flesh to eagles or tigers, showcasing the concept of self-sacrifice. However, in the form of Yellowbrow's Yellow Buddhism, rather than valuing the equality of all beings, they emphasize a strict hierarchy where the worth of lives is determined by social rank. You will see this philosophy reflected in your battle with Yellowbrow as well. Noong Pure is Yellowbrow's third disciple. If we look closely at the Chinese names of these disciples, we notice a deliberate contrast with the names of Tong Sanzong's three disciples. Tong Sanzong's disciples are Wukong Void, Waneng Able, and Wujing Pure, which translate to Void, Able, and Pure in English. However, Yellowbrow named his disciples Noong Void, Noong Able, and Noong Pure, creating a direct opposition to Tong Sanzong's followers. At last, we come face to face with Yellowbrow, the character who marked the beginning of this entire story and will also bring it to its end.
Jinchanzi and I were peers. Ever questing with goodwill, he was. His nature made him question the supremacy of us beyond mortal woe and grief. He deemed all souls could be akin to us. Why then do we tower whilst others merely kneel and offer? He asked. I told him the others are less than us. His misstep cast him back into the endless cycle. Reborn, he drew 3 disciples. But what did they change? One ended up a corpse, others fugitives. He too took to the shadows. Pathetic. Those journeyers have misplaced their worship. Why bet on the sutra when one oneself can be a Buddha?
Kneel before the Buddha of the future.
According to his profile, we find a conversation between him and Jinchanzi that took place 500 years ago. In this brief exchange, they debated for significant questions. The first question was about the nature and meaning of life. Jinchanzi believed that the meaning of life lies in the pursuit of truth, seeking the fundamental laws of the universe. In contrast, Yellowbrow emphasized the cyclical nature of pleasure and suffering, claiming that both are equally important and that no one can escape this cycle. The second question was about desire and liberation. Yellowbrow praised the beauty of flowers and the natural cycles of life, stressing the importance of enjoying the present. Jinchanzi, however, argued that the fleeting satisfaction from desire ultimately leads to prolonged suffering, advocating for the abandonment of desire altogether. The third question dealt with good and evil in human nature. Before the battle with Yellowbrow, he responds to Jinchanzi's query on why mortals bow to deities while the Buddhas remain above them with, "The others are less than us." Yellowbrow's reasoning stems from his observations of human indulgence and how it often leads to harm. He believes that human nature is inherently evil, and thus mortals are inferior to beings like him. Jinchanzi, however, contends that indulgence harms the one who indulges, and that it's a choice made by some, not the innate nature of all humanity. The final question revolved around the cycle of pain and pleasure. Yellowbrow maintained that the cycle of suffering and joy forms the foundation of life's prosperity. One cannot exist without the other. He argued that since it's impossible to separate them, eliminating suffering would also mean eliminating joy, making redemption meaningless. Jinchanzi disagreed, asserting that the cycle can indeed be broken by abandoning desire, thus freeing oneself from the suffering that desire brings and allowing for true happiness.
Behold my Mahavira hall! How can Mount Linsa match its magnificence?
Now, as I was writing this part of the script, I hesitated. I wasn't sure how many people would be willing to dive into such complex philosophical discussions in a game, but I feel like I shouldn't hold back in my sharing. If you find these thoughts resonate with you, then I'm glad you've had a unique experience, just like I did. But if you think I've overcomplicated a simple game, feel free to focus on the gameplay after all. Yellowbrow is no easy opponent to defeat.
And
Thank you for watching. If you have any other content you'd like to see or suggestions, please let me know in the comments.